2020 BMW X6 M50i versus the 2020 BMW X5 M50i. Aloha guys, it's Joe Tunney visiting my very good friends at BMW of Hawaii in the beautiful city of Kona on the big island of Hawaii. And taking a look at the M50i's particularly, I'm reminded that people need to blow off steam. They just do, and there's a million ways to do it. It's just in the car world, sports cars have always held a treasured place in people's hearts because sports cars allow you to quote-unquote blow off that steam after a long day, or it's something to look forward to on your days off. It's why sports cars will always be a big hit forever and ever. And you might say, well, why would somebody buy a sports utility? Why wouldn't they just get a true sports car? But depending on where you live, depending on your family or your travel situation, sometimes the perfect fit is something that's both sporty on one end and practical on the other end. And we're going to take a look at the differences between the 2020 X6 M50i and the 2020 X5 M50i, and maybe discover which one might be the perfect fit for you. The hood on the X6 M50i and take a look at what powers it. Now, whether you get the 2020 X6 M50i or the 2020 X5 M50i, you're going to get BMW's 4.4 liter twin turbo engine, called the hot V because the turbos are exactly in the middle of the engine, so they're not wandering around the engine compartment. This one puts out 523 horsepower to go with 553 pound-feet of torque. Now, let's put this in perspective. Whether you get the X6 at 5,255 pounds or the X5 at 5,260 pounds, you've got a vehicle that goes 0 to 60 in 4.1 seconds, which is absolutely astonishing. But say that's not quite fast enough for you. Just do the launch control. Keep your foot on the brake and rev it up to 2,800 RPM and let her rip. 0 to 60 in 3.8 seconds. Now the engine on the M50i, whether you get the X6 or the X5, the block is made of a different aluminum alloy than the standard 4.4 liter twin turbo engines are. It also has different pistons and reinforced piston rings to, again, withstand that 523 horsepower, 553 pound-feet of torque. It has an electronic limited slip differential to get the power to the road. It has a ZF 8HP automatic transmission, 8 speeds, incredibly fast shifting. This is widely considered the single best automatic transmission in the world. So much so that BMW's gone completely away from that dual clutch type of transmission that was all the rage 10-15 years ago and gone to the ZF 8HP, as has the vast majority of luxury brands around the world. Now, this goes from 0 to 60 in under 4 seconds. Let's see what that feels like. It feels fantastic. Now, it's not a bone-jarring ride at all, no matter what suspension that you get, unless you're unnaturally sensitive to undulations in the road. It just feels nice, taut, not floaty in any way, not abrupt in any way. Power transition is very, very smooth. There's no turbo lag of any kind. The brakes aren't grabby in any way. If you didn't know this was a high-performance vehicle, just driving it around, it doesn't even feel like it's fast. It just feels normal and comfortable and luxurious. Now we're going over some real heavy, uneven roads here. Yeah, it's fine. To put into perspective the power of the M50i, whether in the X6 or the X5, say you're watching a TV commercial. You got that window crystal guy who's hosing down the house, and you're imagining to yourself, do people really hose down their house? Well, apparently so, because that commercial's on TV all the time. Now, if you loaded up your X5 or your X6 with everybody you know and all of their stuff, we're talking about 6,000 pounds, you and the car included. In the time it takes for that commercial to play, you can go from an absolute standstill, 0 miles an hour, to over 150 miles an hour. It's absolutely astonishing how this vehicle puts the power to the ground. Now, obviously the X6 M50i and X5 M50i are incredibly fast. They're also very heavy. The X6 checks in at 5,255 pounds, the X5 at 5,260 pounds. Bringing all that power, bringing all that weight to a stop is a tremendously important aspect of any high-performance vehicle. This has BMW's 15.6-inch front discs and 14.6-inch rear discs. 4 piston calipers in the front, single piston caliper in the rear. Now, this goes from 70 miles an hour to 0 miles an hour in 153 feet, which is utterly astonishing. Let's put that in perspective. One of my favorite cars is the Ford Mustang GT with the performance package. That's the one with the front Brembos and etc. That goes from 70 to 0 in 157 feet. The fact that this can stop, considering its heft, considering its height, considering everything that makes this what it is, and it can stop faster than something as sensational as a Mustang GT performance package, is absolutely amazing. Now, the air ride suspension on the X6 M50i and X5 M50i enables you to put the vehicle into sport mode, and it lowers the entire chassis by about a full inch. In fact, you can elevate it by 1.6 inches as well. It's important to note the suspension package that you choose when you buy an X6 M50i or X5 M50i is going to have a big role in how the vehicle performs. It's your choice if you want the front and rear air suspension, which is going to be popular with people who are looking for a slightly more comfortable ride. But there's also the adaptive M suspension, which is going to be popular with enthusiasts. And then the dynamic handling package, which is going to be popular with me because it has the Active M Suspension Pro, or the Adaptive M Suspension Pro. And it comes with features like active steering, active roll stabilization. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that because to me, that's some of the most interesting cutting edge technology available on the SUV marketplace. However, whatever you pick, this is going to handle tremendously well. Despite its size and its overall girth, this handles at 0.91 Gs, which isn't just right at the edge of sports car territory. It's actually well within the range of some of the highest performing sports cars in the world. Let's take a look inside. One of the obvious concerns about picking the X6 M50i over the X5 M50i is the actual interior space. Because this is a fastback as opposed to a wagon, that sculpted roofline is going to come at the expense of a lot of interior room. So I'm 6 feet, 180 pounds, and it's obvious that I have more than enough headroom up in front. In fact, it's very, very comfortable up in front. Very comfortable leg room, very comfortable shoulder room. It's just very comfortable. But where you worry about the fastback design is in the back seat. So let's take a look back there. So there's places to plug in all of your stuff in both seats in the back. But the first thing that comes to mind is a lot of the reviews on the X6 particularly say, you know, what the heck do they make such a fast vehicle for in an impractical overall design? Because being a fastback means that there's no headroom, especially in the back seat. Well, again, at 6 feet tall, how much headroom do you need? There's a colossal amount of headroom. I could straighten out my back as much as I possibly can, and I just can't reach the roof line. It's just, it has more than enough headroom, not just in the front, but in the back as well. It's very, very comfortable for four. One thing to keep in mind as well, you have to imagine when people buy a vehicle like this, it's more than likely that they have another vehicle. So if you live in an area, especially where weather can be challenging, there's dramatic swings in rain and snow and what have you, you want a sports car as your daily driver, but the attractiveness of all-wheel drive is obvious. Also, you like to run errands throughout your day. Maybe you swing by Costco, pick up the dry cleaning, or you're a real estate agent and you need to lay out your signs. And so whether you're bringing people around or not, you need something that serves a general purpose without losing the fun side of, again, just blowing off some steam after work and having something that goes 0 to 60 in 3.8 seconds for a quick little romp after work. But let's take a look in the trunk. Now, again, much is made of the limited space in the trunk, coming in at just about 27 cubic feet. But once again, how much space do you need? 27 cubic feet is gigantic. It's much larger than most luxury sedans. And so it doesn't matter what you're putting in here, whether it's real estate signs or you're a soccer coach, whether you're going for a week vacation and you have a bunch of luggage or just a big trip to Costco. You have all the space that you need in the trunk. And so you need to ask yourself the question, how much space do I really need? Sure, the X6 is more sculpted than the X5. In fact, it's a lot more sculpted than the X5, but maybe that's actually the better fit. That custom tailored bespoke fit might be the right fit for you. That bright, open, airy concept of the cabin is a little bit lost on the X6, where it's in abundance in the X5. If you like that big, voluminous, open air type of experience, then for sure you're going to want the X5. If you want that sporty, dramatic kind of cockpit sensation, well then for sure you're going to want the X6. But let's take a look in back and let's take a look at the difference between the two. Since both ride on the same 117.1 inch wheelbase and they both have exactly the same width, the actual room for the people in the back is exactly the same in every category but one, the headroom. And so there's gobs more headroom in the X5 than there is in the X6. But unless you're waving around your hands in the air or something like that, I just don't know a situation where you would actually benefit. Other than that's just your personal choice. If you prefer, again, that big, open, airy, spacious feel, well then without a doubt, you're going to want the X5. But if you like that sports car vibe, for sure you're going to go for the X6. Now, there's a lot more space in the back of an X5 than the X6. Also, because of the unique dual door opening of the X5, it's a lower ingress-egress for all of your stuff. That comes in handy if you're putting in boxes or something like that that's got some weight to it that needs to slide in and out. But overall, both trunks are going to work 99% of the time, 99% the same. And so if you really genuinely need that extra amount of room in the back, no brainer, go for the X5. So whether you ultimately choose the X6 M50i or the X5 M50i, that's going to be your own personal taste. But I'm going to encourage you to think a little bit outside the box on this one. Now sure, the X6 has always been one of my favorite vehicles in the world, but especially if you have more than one vehicle, I would take a good long look at the X6 M50i. I think this is going to be the configuration of all the different X6 varieties that's going to be the single most popular, because it's everything you love about high performance, but in a real world practical package. The X5 M50i is going to win the editor's reviews every single time because it's bigger and more spacious. But that's if you only have one vehicle, and it has to be perfect for every kind of situation in the world. If you have more than one vehicle and just want something that's an absolute blast to drive all of the time, no matter what the world throws at you, I'm here to tell you the X6 M50i is just about the most perfect vehicle I've ever been involved with.